Hello and welcome to this Point Blank Music School video. With the release of Ableton Live 11, we've created hours of new content to cover all the new features. This video is a snippet of our Intro to Production Ableton course and showcases all the brand new audio effects packed with Live 11. If you'd like to learn more about music production and Ableton Live, check out pointblankmusicschool.com. But in the meantime, please enjoy.
Let's take a look at Hybrid Reverb, which is a powerful new reverb device introduced in Ableton Live 11. Hybrid Reverb combines two different reverb engines, a convolution reverb based on impulse responses, and an algorithmic reverb. Hybrid Reverb is extremely versatile and it's great for creating everything from realistic reverbs to unusual textures that can be great for sound design. So there are four main modes that Hybrid Reverb operates in. If we come down into the plugin window and click here, we can see that the default is set to serial. Serial means that the convolution reverb is fed into the algorithmic reverb. And if we want to use both of these reverb modes, we can also select parallel. However, this works slightly differently in that both of them are processing the input signal simultaneously. We can also isolate either the convolution or the algorithm section here. Let's just look at the convolution section firstly for now. So the default impulse response is within the early reflections folder, and I've got a drum track loaded, so let's just have a listen to what this sounds like on its own. And if we come to this drop-down menu here, we can see the different types of impulse responses that are available to us. So let's try something a bit different. Let's go for chambers and large rooms. And then the drop-down menu below this allows us to select a impulse response within this folder. I'm going to go for drum chamber for now. And we can further edit the impulse response with these attack, decay, and size parameters as well. So if I thought that maybe that was sounding too big for my liking, I can just turn the size down. And you'll notice that the value in seconds is also displayed as well in the top right, just above the waveform. So this impulse response is great for a realistic space. Let's try something a little bit more unusual. I'm going to go into spring reverbs here, just because I've got a kind of dub track idea with a bass here. So let's have a listen to this. So spring reverbs are classic reverbs used in dub production, and it's great that we have all of these available to us. The default is called Awesome Stereo Spring, and I actually really like the sound of this, but I'll just show you another one, for example, Classic Amp Spring. So you can see you can get some really unusual spring reverb effects, but I'm going to stick with Awesome Stereo Spring for now. And I'm actually going to reduce the size quite a bit here. So I'm liking the sound of that with quite a short, snappy spring reverb. But I do feel that it maybe sounds a little bit dry and could benefit from being combined with an algorithm. The great thing is I can just do this by coming here. And let's run these in parallel for now. Now the algorithm I've got selected is Dark Cool. And it's actually a good idea if we're just selecting the algorithm, remember that we can actually solo the algorithm. So we can listen to this part and then combine it back with the spring. And that probably gives us better control over what we're listening to. So let's have a listen to this in its default mode. So that's sounding a little bit big and washy. I could potentially choose a different algorithm. For example, we've got Shimmer, which adds interesting pitched reverb effects, and Tides, which adds kind of interesting phasey reverb effects. All of these have their own different dials down here, so they're worth exploring. Let's stick with Dark Cool for now. And let's just shape this algorithmic reverb individually and then combine it back with the convolution. So I know that I want to take down the decay and the size here. And I was also adjusting the damping there as well. So I think that's sounding quite good for now. And I'm going to just come back here. And let's run this again in parallel mode, and you can see obviously that activates the convolution. So let's listen to this drum reverb sound that we've created. Let's just solo this and further adjust the reverb with this EQ tab here, which is really handy. You can see it's automatically got this roll-off applied. You can adjust the EQ on and off by clicking here, but I want it on for this purpose, so I'm going to keep it on. And it's great having this EQ built into the reverb because it allows us to shape the sound straight away. So I'm just going to roll off a bit more of the low end here. And perhaps I'll roll off a little bit of the highs as well. So that's sounding good to me. Lastly, I'm just going to tweak the dry wet setting a bit. So I think that's sounding good for now. And let's listen to this again. So that's a pretty nice dubby drum sound created with Hybrid Reverb. Let's just have another quick look at another application for this as well. So I've got this guitar chop loaded in here, which I'm just going to solo for you now. And you'll notice in Hybrid Reverb, I've got a different convolution setting. And I went into textures here and found this setting called Space Fattened Echo. And you can see from the waveform that what this is doing is it's actually creating an echo effect. So this is another great use of Hybrid Reverb. Like I say, it is super versatile. So I'm actually effectively using it as a delay here. And I've got this in serial mode, again using the dark hall algorithm. Maybe I'll just quickly demo a different algorithm. Let's have a listen to what tides would sound like with this, if we just solo it for now. So I really like the sound of that actually. I'm going to come back and I'm going to use these in serial this time. So the echoing effect is being affected by the algorithm as well. And let's have a listen to this in context. So you can hear that already I've managed to get a couple of different sounding reverbs out of Hybrid Reverb. And to be honest, I've barely scratched the surface. There are so many possibilities with different combinations of impulse responses and algorithms. And you can also experiment with the different vintage modes as well. For example, I've got this set to old for the guitar chop. Maybe I could go into the drums, solo these. And the vintage modes are great if you're trying to emulate old school sounding reverbs, as they add a little bit of degrading to the audio quality. So that's a quick look at Hybrid Reverb and a couple of practical applications for it. I'd definitely recommend exploring it yourself because there are a huge range of reverbs that you can create with this powerful tool. Spectral Time allows us to freeze incoming audio and then apply frequency-based delay processing to this. It can be found within Audio Effects and then Delay and Loop. And what I'm going to do is just load it onto a channel here. And I'll just turn it off for now and play you the source audio that I'll be using. It's just a drum and bass clip. So let's turn Spectral Time on. I'll leave the dry wet at 50% now just so we can hear a little bit of the effect. And you'll notice that there are two main sections here. We have this freezer section and then also the delay section as well. These can both be used individually or in conjunction with each other. And the way the signal processing works is that the audio is fed into the freezer first and then into the delay. So let's firstly have a look at the freezer section. So I will just come up here to toggle the delay section off. The default mode is manual, and this means that whenever I click the freeze button, it will freeze incoming audio. So let me just demonstrate this quickly. And And you can hear that we have captured a freeze of the audio. Rather than clicking manually, you can also set it to re-trigger mode. So there are two options within re-trigger mode. We have onsets and sync. Now onsets will trigger a freeze whenever it hears a transient, and you can control the sensitivity of this with this control. And sync will trigger a freeze based on parameters that you set. So this can be either intervals in milliseconds, or you can set it to be rhythmical as well. So for example, eighth notes. Let's just have a listen to what these sound like. So notice there that I was able to dial the sensitivity down, so it was triggering a freeze on the biggest transient hits, which are the kick drum and the snare drum. You can further control the freezes by using the fade section over here. You can use a crossfade, which fades between freezes. And for more control, you can click this button here and you can control the fade in and fade out of each freeze. So I'll demonstrate these for you. So as you can see there, I dialed in a very short fade in and fade out to create very snappy freezes. And this will be quite good for demonstrating the delay section, which I'm now going to activate just by clicking here. So firstly, let's go through the parameters that are quite common on a lot of delays. So we have time here. The default is milliseconds, but if we come down here, we can set this to notes, 16th notes. And you can also have triplet and dotted rhythms as well. And then we also have the feedback value here, as well as the dry wet, and you can also add stereo width as well. So let's just demonstrate a simple 16th note delay. So as you can hear, it is delaying the freezes that we are feeding into it. And at the moment, we're not using any of the frequency-based processing. So let's have a look at these controls as well. So firstly, we have the shift parameter. The shift parameter shifts the frequency of the delayed signal. So once I start playing with this, you'll also notice we have the spectrogram to the right here as well, and you'll be able to see the effect of this and also hear it. So you can hear we start to get some strange kind of almost robotic-like frequency shifting effects. At the bottom here are three more controls to do the frequency. Firstly, we have the tilt dial. Now what the tilt does is if you turn it up, it delays higher frequencies more than lower frequencies, and vice versa. If you turn it to below 0, it will delay low frequencies more than high frequencies. So let's have a listen to the effect that this has. You can hear the effect of that, and also you could see it on the spectrogram as well. Just to the right of this, we have the spray control. Spray control spreads out the delay signals and can lead to a kind of washed out sounding effect. So let's use this in conjunction with the tilt. I'm going to turn the tilt up to delay high frequencies more and then add some spray as well. And lastly, we have the mask control. Now the mask control affects both the tilt and the spray. If we turn this up, it means that tilt and spray are only affecting higher frequencies. And likewise, if we turn this down, it means that tilt and spray are only affecting lower frequencies. You'll be able to hear the effect that this has. So that's a rundown of the controls available to you on the Spectral Time audio effect. Now, of course, we've been listening to drums this whole time, so let's try using Spectral Time on a different piece of audio. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this blip sound and I'm going to use the freeze function to capture a piece of the audio and then use the shift parameter on the delay to create a low-pitched drone effect. And what I'll do is then bounce this to audio and then it would be ready to use perhaps as some background atmosphere in a track. So let me demonstrate how simple this is to create. So what I need to do first is just manually trigger the freeze function to capture the audio. I turn the dry wet to 100, you can hear what we've captured. And then on the delay section, just dial the shift down. Turn the dry wet up. Now all I need to do is come to this audio track, change audio from to the channel that I was just using there, record arm, and then record a new clip. And if I just solo this and play the audio clip, we've now got that long droning effect committed to audio, and I can apply all the usual processing. Perhaps I want to pitch it down. And then I could drag this onto the arrange window and use it as some background atmospheres for a track. So Spectral Time is great for sound design purposes as well, and it's worth trying it with a variety of different source audio such as drums, synths and vocals, and try experimenting with the different freeze functions and also the various frequency-based delay parameters that are on offer to you. Let's take a look at the Spectral Resonator audio effect, which was introduced in Ableton Live 11. The Spectral Resonator can be found under Audio Effects and Reverb and Resonance, and as you can see, I've already loaded an instance of this onto a channel. So the Spectral Resonator is a fascinating device for sound design, as what it's doing is it takes the input signal and breaks this down into individual partials, that is the individual sine waves that make up the sound, and then applies a resonator process to them. So what I'm going to do is I've got the dry wet set to 0 now. I'm going to play this drum break that I've got and slowly blend in the effect so you can hear what it sounds like in its default mode. So you can hear already it's had a massive difference on the sound, creating that resonating effect. And we've got the mode set to internal at the moment, which is the default mode. This means that the pitch of the resonator is controlled by this frequency dial. It's set in hertz at the moment, but you can also switch it to be a note as well. And you can see you can obviously change the pitch up or down to your liking. And just below this, we have two dials. We have a stretch and a shift control. What the stretch does is it compresses or increases the spacing of the harmonics, and the shift control decreases or increases the frequency of the input spectrum. So let's just have a listen to what these two controls sound like. So you can hear that both of those also have a dramatic impact on the sound as well. Just to the right of this, we've got another three dials. We've got decay, and we've also got high frequency and low frequency damping, just for damping frequencies and shaping the sound a little bit more. And then to the right of this, we've got our modulation options as well. Now it's set to none by default, but you can choose chorus, which is a traditional chorus, And then we've also got wonder and granular mode as well. Granular in particular is really interesting because it creates these kind of granular bleepy bloopy effects. So what I'll do is I'll just activate these effects and play the sound so you can hear what they sound like. And you'll notice that I just turned the mod rate up there as well. That works particularly well for granular. But also you can get more dramatic chorus sounds using that. And if you want to thicken up the sound even further, you can come over to the right hand side here and add in some unison, some extra voices as well. Something else to point out that you will have noticed is this spectrogram as well, which enables you to visualize the sound as well. And also we've got this harmonic style at the top here. By default, it's set to the maximum 256. And basically just turning this down takes out the higher harmonics, which can ease the load on CPU a bit and also can work for different sound design purposes as well. So now I'd like to show you the MIDI mode of Spectral Resonator, and to activate this what I need to do is come over here and select the MIDI control. And then from MIDI from I need to make sure that I've got my MIDI information selected, and on channel 2 I've got a chord. So if I simply click here, that means that this chord will now be triggering the resonator. And to make sure that all of the notes of the chord trigger, I need to make sure that we are in poly. We're in mono at the moment, so let's just check poly here. And then I'll make sure that I'm also activated this channel so it's playing. I'll quickly show you the notes of the chord I've got here. It's a G sharp minor add 9 chord. And this is going to dramatically change the sound of the drum break. So let's just have a listen to the effect this has had. You can also use this transpose dial here to change the chord on the fly as well, just to pitch it up or down. Now this is a fantastic feature for sound design, and what I did is I was quite inspired by this chord. So what I've done in the rest of this project here is I've got the drum break duplicated onto another channel here, and I've just singled out the kick drum hit. I've still got it resonating via the chord, and what I was able to do is create this kind of dub techno chord sound. I'm just going to change the project tempo down to 120, which is more of a sort of dub techno appropriate tempo. It's got a really interesting sonic quality because the notes of the chord are resonating with a kick drum sample. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to play this with the rest of the little loop I created as well. And I'm just going to move the shift parameter up and down just to show you how you can automate parameters within Spectral Resonator and create some really interesting effects. So that's just one quick example of how the Spectral Resonator can be used for sound design. Obviously the possibilities here really are endless. It just depends on what source material you're feeding into the Spectral Resonator. Vocals are a great idea to try as well, and perhaps try using some audio samples of synths as well. Really any material can be manipulated and changed into something different using this very powerful device.